Hello and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. I'm Aaron Porras, here with ILTV's Morning Briefing.
United States President Donald Trump stunned allies and enemies alike yesterday after he announced that he'd be willing to meet with Iranian leaders with no preconditions. He's just doubled down on that position at a rally in Tampa, saying that those talks could happen pretty soon, before quickly following up with maybe not. The possibility of a United States-Iran summit has left Israeli leaders a bit uneasy as well, despite American assurances that Trump's policy on Iran has not changed at all. Israeli intelligence and security was cited as one of the chief reasons for Trump's pullout of the 2015 JCPOA nuclear deal with Iran. Prior to the signing of that deal, the United States has had zero formal communications with the regime since the 1979 storming of the U.S. Embassy. It took years of mediation to reach the landmark 2015 accord, in which Iran agreed to slow its nuclear program in exchange for the lifting of international sanctions. Any bridges there were all but torched when Trump announced that the United States would no longer be a party to the deal, however. Despite Trump's apparent optimism over the possibility of talks with Iran, Iranian leaders seem far less enthusiastic. The head of Iran's Revolutionary Guards has denounced the idea entirely. Iran's Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif has also said that if Trump really wants talks, then threats, sanctions, and PR stunts won't work. Try respect for Iranians and for international commitments. Still, other Iranian officials have said that this offer shouldn't be outright dismissed, especially considering that the rest of the nuclear deal's signatories have yet to renegotiate the deal. And with fresh United States sanctions arriving in the coming days, Israeli leaders are undoubtedly uneasy over the idea of the U.S. even considering a sit-down with their sworn enemy. That also may be why Netanyahu has also invested heavily in relations with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Today, we've learned that Russian forces have just removed Iranian proxy forces from an 85-kilometer buffer zone alongside the Israeli border. Several years ago, at the height of the 2015 terror wave in Israel, an Arab-Israeli woman was arrested and charged with inciting violence with her poetry. The prosecution of poet Darin Tatul quickly became an international incident, and now, following years of litigation, Tatul has just been sentenced to 5 months in prison, followed by an additional half year of suspended term. Her original poem, titled "Resist, My People, Resist," was posted to social media sometime in October of 2015. At the time, Palestinian terror against Israelis and IDF soldiers had hit a breaking point in a 6-month period of random attacks known locally as the Stabbing Intifada. Video images alongside the poem included Palestinians attacking IDF soldiers with rocks and slingshots. After her arrest, Tatul denied that her poem contained any calls for violence. One line in her text, however, includes the words, "I will not succumb to the peaceful solution, never lower my flags until I evict them from my land." In the poem, Tatul seems to compare herself to the other so-called martyrs who were killed while attempting to carry out terror attacks. An Israeli court announced upon her conviction that the poem did indeed amount to terror incitement, and that free expression had its limits. For some, this was a fair ruling, but for other Israelis and many in the international community, this was seen as a massive violation of freedom of speech. They pointed out that although Tatul's words do perhaps encourage resistance, they're merely words at the end of the day. Others have pointed out that similar cases of incitement against Arab Israelis often fails to even come close to charges, while in this case a symbolic poem was flagged at record pace. Tatul has already served the majority of her sentence while awaiting sentencing. She will likely spend a further 2 months in jail. Human rights organization Amnesty International is now claiming that one of its researchers, as well as a Saudi-based activist, were the targets of spyware designed by Israeli-based intelligence organization NSO Group. According to the Citizen Lab, which investigated and corroborated the claims, the two activists, quote, received suspicious SMS and WhatsApp messages in June 2018. Amnesty International researchers have concluded that the messages appeared to be attempts to infect these phones with NSO Group's Pegasus spyware, end quote. Working from a headquarters at the University of Toronto, Citizen Lab has been tracking NSO spyware for the past 2 years, and claims to have counted at least 175 other cases. 1 in the United Arab Emirates, 2 in Saudi Arabia, 22 in Mexico, and roughly 150 in Panama, in relation to illegal wiretapping and embezzlement charges against former Panama President Ricardo Martinelli. The Citizen Lab report concludes that NSO Group is either, quote, unwilling or unable to prevent its customers from misusing its powerful spyware tools. NSO has responded in a written statement that its product is intended exclusively for prevention and investigation of crime and terrorism. It goes on to claim that any allegations of wrongdoing will be investigated, and that past misuses have led to ending customer contracts. In a landmark sign, armed Palestinian Authority security forces in uniform toured areas in the Israeli-controlled regions of Hebron in the West Bank. According to the Palestinian Authority's official news site Wafa, 30 members of the PA police and security forces participated in the tour. And an official from the Hebron governor's office told the Times of Israel that while the tour was symbolic, quote, "We hope that it foreshadows us establishing a permanent presence there in the near future," end quote. The PA believes that the Israeli-controlled areas of Hebron can often be safe havens for Palestinian criminals, and indeed it's true that the IDF doesn't station soldiers in certain areas, creating a so-called no-man's land between Israeli and PA-controlled regions. Officials at COGAT, the Israeli coordinator of government activities in the territories, confirmed that the police were given permission for the tour, however denied plans to change policing policies in Hebron. Moreover, some in Hebron's Jewish community have already expressed concerns over the visit, calling it a serious and dangerous step. Still, only time will tell whether or not it's a step that could lead to better policing for all.
That's all for now. I'm Aaron Porras, and see you later with our main daily broadcast from Israel at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.